day 4. I'll eventually stop recording these like an hour before midnight and actually line up with the day. Day 4 is Choriki Sentai Ohranger. Camera angle might not be wide enough, but whatever. Choriki Sentai is the 19th overall season, 1995. And I watched this in February of 2019. That is actually an important note to make when I get to it later. So things I liked, things that threw me off guard. I felt like the theming made more sense. This is when, in terms of Power Rangers, when they move on from the original Mighty Morphin dinosaurs, and then a little bit of Mythical Dragon, then Ninja, but then they actually change the suits this time. And the theming makes a little more sense because Choriki, it's a power derived from ancient civilizations such as the Egyptians and Romans and Greeks, and then apparently Polynesian and Japanese. So it kind of made a little bit more sense there. So in terms of the journey that was going on, this was the first one that actually had 2 female rangers, and I like that a little bit more. There's a little more diversity, that sisterly dynamic kind of provided a little bit more variety in terms of the characters you could have. It was the first one I encountered with a military setting, so I feel like it kind of went to its roots a little bit, kind of like Ohranger and Jaka. I think those have like a military spy vibe. So one of the villains, or I guess technically the villain's wife, or the main villain's wife, or I guess at the time of which I'm referring, the main villain's mother, her end kind of reminds me of Witch Pandora's in that she gains compassion through a child, and that her son has a child, and even though she's supposed to be the villain, or she's in the villain role or villain side, she gains compassion and she gives the child to the Ohrangers so that they can raise it for the right purposes. Because I think when she had that grandchild, she noticed that, oh, humans have children and grandchildren too. So she kind of gained compassion through that, and she wanted to make a change. The only thing is, when she did that, she blew up. Because this is the finale we're talking about. And that was a dark way to go out. The scene is a lot darker and more exciting than I'm describing it. On to a few other things that threw me off guard. So I feel like I went back to doing like a community service, kind of similar to Ohranger, but that was before I had my revelation, and that was before I found out the thing I'm going to share later that will pretty much put a lot of everything into perspective. That was kind of weird that King Ranger was a kid again, kind of like Ko, and had a few gaps in appearances. I mean, this was their 3rd time doing a 6th Ranger, an official 6th Ranger, so maybe they were still working out kinks, or really like fitting it into the story and the budgeting and all that stuff. When I mentioned that the main villain's wife, or at some point the mother, her son marries her niece and they have a kid, I'm like, wait, so, but they're cousins. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, I'll save that part for after. Oh, and this is when it finally dawned on me that the movies are SemiCanon. So, a reminder to that. I didn't have access to any of the movies, although the movies didn't really start becoming prevalent until, I think, at least Ohranger. Because Ohranger versus Ohranger was the first time they started doing the Versus series where they pit the current season versus the previous season. But they also have like summer movies, and this was the first time it actually dawned on me that they might have relevance in the series and what I consider semi-canon, because although I did watch Ninja, Ohranger, Go Buster, and Go Kaiger before, I made some exceptions in that, or at least from what I noticed, Ninja didn't really make use of its movie canon from what I saw. Ohranger actually had a whole episode, but I felt like they kind of did enough in the episode to, well, not necessarily not need the movie, but it didn't really feel out of place the same way that this episode did. For Go Buster, it was like a really small thing towards the end, like the last scene in like the second or third to last episode that I didn't really think about. And then Go Kaiger, I just made an exception because it was the 35th anniversary, and just the way they had to rearrange all the movies. Instead of doing the versus movie at the end of the season, they actually put it in the middle, because that actually leads right into the rest of the season. And then they had to do the Gavon crossover and all that stuff. Anyway, this was the first time it really became apparent to me that, oh, the movies are semi-canon, because there was an episode where they said, oh, this monster looks kind of familiar. And then I'm like, did I skip an episode? Did I miss something? And then I go back, I check the wikis and try to read through, and then I finally read this episode, and this monster was from the summer movie. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll just have to watch as is. This last part gets kind of real. So the thing I was mentioning earlier before, like why they kind of went to a certain community service kind of feel, is because apparently Ohranger was affected by a real world event, and coincidentally enough, following my pattern of watching these 2 seasons a month, I would have to watch Ohranger in February. In February of 2019, another YouTube channel called Lost in Tokusatsu had a video called, I think it was When the Real World Affects Tokusatsu. In it, he details the events and the Tokusatsu shows that were affected. For instance, I already knew that Go Kaiger was affected by the 2011 earthquakes, and technically so was Kamen Rider Forza. In 1995, which is when Ohranger came out, there was a terrorist attack on a subway by a cult leader from Japan. And it was a nerve gas attack. That is referenced in episode 9, where there's a monster that has a nerve gas attack or power. It only affected males, and it really showcased the O yellow and O pink. But after that, it completely changed the direction of Ohranger, because I think the producers said that like Ohranger was meant to be a dark season, like the whole invasion stuff in the beginning, and then you kind of see tidbits of it throughout that totally could have been used in its original direction. But I think in order to kind of comfort the kids at the time, they decided to go with a lighter approach, which is kind of why it had that community service feel that I noticed. When I read about, or when Lost in Tokusatsu did that video, and it talked about that gas attack, I wonder why it actually sounded familiar. And that's because I actually read an article about it from Next Shark, where I think they said they finally executed the guy and some of his followers some 23 years later. Yeah, again, just another example of something Japanese I didn't think I was going to pick up. And with that being said, I was kind of curious as to whether or not they would address the KyoAni fire in an episode of Ryusoldier, which is the current season. As far as I know, I don't think they did. Maybe I just didn't pick it up. Maybe I just didn't catch it. Real life events affecting shows, or even movies, isn't uncommon. I mean, after 9/11 happened, a lot of shows were very careful to not show any sort of building explosions. Arrow had that one mass shooting episode. Yeah, it's not uncommon, unfortunately. I guess kind of moving on to the my favorite episode. My favorite episode is episode 15. Oh Friend, Sleep Hotly. It kind of plays on the classic, oh, this monster isn't so bad. Kind of a episode, but it's a little bit different because usually those episodes, those monsters just don't want to be associated with being a monster. They don't want to be a monster anymore. They have a different purpose in life. They want to live with the humans. They want to do something good, something like that. This one was more like this monster of the week wanted revenge against the head villain. And the way it was done was actually really, I guess, kind of heartfelt, especially the way that monster of the week, or the monster that wants revenge, dies. And, realizing that the Ohrangers are there to handle the villain, and the monster of the week kind of understanding that it can't complete the mission, but the Ohrangers can, and entrusting the Ohrangers to complete that mission, and just the way that the monster of the week essentially dies at the end. It's actually kind of sad, especially because, of course they have to bring the dog in, and the monster saves a dog, and it kind of proves that it actually has a heart. And, because the villains are based on robots, the monster of the week, the robot, goes into a junkyard and finally just disintegrates as it's kind of petting a dog. And it's a pretty sad way to go out. So even though episode 9 was a reference to the domestic terror attack, I want to say not only was this episode probably already in mind before they decided to change the direction of the show, I think that it was kind of a suitable message, in that, yeah, there are bad people out there, but there are also some not bad people out there, I think, is kind of what that episode spoke to me about.